I am Brandon.
I'm Thomas.
And every 2 weeks we make Hardstyle Gekhuis, the podcast for the Dutch hardstyle fan. And normally we do this in Dutch, but
Yes.
especially for our guest in the middle, we're doing this in English.
Yeah.
In this extra, we're going to walk through the guest's career again in a musical way. And of course, we're going to ask him tons of questions about all the tracks he made. This time, it's a true Italian hardstyle hero. He has many aliases like Bison, Tatarola, Tatakt, Wild Motherfuckers, but most people know him as Tatanka.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast, Valerio. How are you?
Quite good.
Yeah?
Quite good. Yeah.
Yesterday you played at Hard Classics.
Yes.
How was the vibe?
Great. Great. I mean, I had the closing set at the hardstyle, like early hardstyle, and it was great. It started raining, but no one left, and the energy was just crazy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What was the track most people go wild about?
It was more of a vibe than just one track.
Okay.
I like to tell a story when I play sets, so the whole thing was just there.
Yeah,
Nice.
of course. Yeah. In the background, you could hear one of your first records. We thought it is.
You already started correcting
Yeah,
us.
maybe we can play it one more time. It's Bison and the Quakers. I Got Tonight,
Yeah.
2001.
Yeah, Bison Meet the Quakers, I Got Tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are many stories about that track. I mean, how to get there.
Quite a loud kick for 2001, right?
Yeah, but okay. Here's the thing. Where do I start from?
Yeah, where do you start
Okay,
from?
okay.
Well, we came here, we said Bison was your first name, and you said, no, Bison wasn't my first name.
That's not true. That's not true. My first production was actually Tatanka.
Okay.
You know, it was Free Spirit on Mammoth Records, and I also produced a Free Spirit EP Part 2 for Mammoth Records, but
It was it was already hardstyle.
no, man, it was 98 and 99.
There was no hardstyle yet.
It was
No.
like, what would you call it?
Pre-hardstyle, if you will.
Okay, yeah,
You
okay.
know? Yes,
A little bit louder than house.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Nice.
There was already an outstanding
Yeah. The
kick for what was considered like the
Yeah,
standards, you know.
There was Gabber already, right? The more
Yeah, but yeah, in Italy, the gabber scene was more like a number one club.
yeah, okay.
That was it, you know.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that area, but you know where I lived, like in Liguria, on the border with Tuscany.
Yeah.
It was other kind of music, you know.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
trance were about what they call the progressive movements with techno, acid, and trance.
Yeah.
And I liked the little heavier things because when I was playing my sets, I always noticed that the people were really digging the drops, like the super dry
Yeah.
kick and bass. So I loved back then Media Records productions for Big Sar, Mauro Picotto, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Komodo and that kind of
Yeah, but
tracks.
even before that.
Ah, okay.
You all know Mauro Picotto for Komodo, but
Yes.
you know there's so much more before that
Yeah.
that shaped my view
Okay.
about electronic music.
Yeah, and then
In
you
clubs.
you released tracks as Tatanka.
Yes.
But why did we find Bison as first track?
Okay, because I was young, and they made me sign. They made me sign a contract, but
Okay.
you know, it was an exclusive contract. I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna produce wherever I want. Oh no, you're tied here for 20 years with your name.
Whoa.
20
Okay.
years.
Fuck. Yes, 20 years. Eventually, I managed to break the contract, but
By another name.
yeah. In the meanwhile, I had so much stuff that I wanted to release, and I started doing that with aliases. I didn't have so much, but still, I had ideas, and I went to Sigma Records, and using some other aliases KX3 or whatever. I don't even remember, man. I've had so many. And Bison was one of those, but that belongs more with the period where I started really trying to make music, and I was doing that, of course, in studios, but I couldn't use the computer myself because I didn't know, so I had to rent studios and go in another studio, maybe learn something.
Yeah.
But then I found do you know PlayStation 1?
Yeah, I know.
So,
I know.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There was this software called Music 2000. And
Okay.
you could actually rip sounds from other CDs
Yeah.
and cut it and
Yeah.
use it as a
sample or
sequencer.
something. Yeah.
Sample-based sequencers.
Oh, yeah.
And so many ideas came out of there. Like Bison Meet the Quakers is one of those.
Okay.
Because I made it out like with samples. So yeah, that was a hard kick. Yeah, it's the one I found. Oh,
Yeah.
Really?
This fits out of
So it's someone else's cake.
yeah, of course,
But you made something.
It's someone else everything. You
Yeah,
know, but
okay,
I just
yeah.
took
Yeah.
parts like
They still do that now.
these
days, so it's not.
And when
nowadays I can do much more. But
Yes, of
but
course,
Back
yeah.
in the days, you know, there
Yeah,
were no tools, there was no experience, there was nothing.
No.
So, but everything came from the gut. And I wanted to test those tracks during the weekends,
Yeah.
and they were very welcomed, you know. And I had like an arsenal of those, so I started doing a little bit here, a little Activa, because it was just so many tracks.
Yeah.
Bison Meet the Quakers. The Quakers in this case are DJ Vortex and Arpa's Dream.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they made one track which is called Quake. So they are referred
The
there
Quakers.
as the Quakers.
Yes.
And Bison is, a reference to Tatanka, which
Yeah,
is
because Tatanka means bison in
yes,
like in American Native
American
language.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I had this demo, and I went to Rome to DJ Vortex and Arpa's Dream, and we made whatever was in that demo.
Yeah.
We made it like professional with Cubase, and that's the story of the track.
Perfect.
Yeah,
2001. Long time ago.
Long
Well,
time ago.
Let's go back to the beginning of your career, because where
Yeah.
did your love for the harder music or the electronic music start? Did you go out as a teenager or?
Yeah, at the beginning, I didn't. I didn't really like house music. I was a fan of Michael Jackson, Vasco Rossi when I was a kid, the Queen, and all I was listening when it was about music cassette with house music. I'm like, this all sounds the same.
Yeah.
It's so boring. But then I was, I don't know, maybe 12 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
Everyone in my town, all the young boys, were obsessed with a track that you could either at a kermes
Yeah.
and
The kermis.
yeah. And then I started searching for this track everywhere, like stores, but also the radio.
We heard this story before from Adaro. You know, Adaro. He told us the same. I heard the track somewhere, and I had to find it somewhere in a store.
And
or
then
on
you
the
find
radio.
so much more.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, what is this? I didn't even know, because it's not on television. It's not played nowhere.
No.
And I was so young, I couldn't go to nightclubs, of course. I was 12. But yeah, when I was 13, I started buying records, because that was my passion. It was what I wanted to do.
And what DJs or producers did you buy tracks from? Was it Mauro Picotto or?
No, that was before that.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but back in the days, it's not that DJs were producers. You know, there was the DJ figure and the producer figure.
Yeah.
So back in the days, the tracks were not made by DJs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the first party you attended?
What do you mean?
Like the first party with the music you make or were going to make? First house party or techno or yeah.
Like a visitor, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or as a DJ?
like a visitor. I would say like a visitor first, because it didn't take long to go to the other side for me.
Okay.
Because since I stepped in the first discotheque, there was a club in my town where I was born.
Yeah.
It was called Alhambra, il Tempio della Musica.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I couldn't go there because I was too young, but I was big.
And
So
it was Italy, so
I could pretend I was a little older.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And after 6 p.m., they would open the doors because I had no money. But they would open the doors to let everyone in for the last 30 minutes or 1 hour, you know? It
Yeah.
was a Sunday afternoon party for the very young guys. And then I entered that room and I saw the magic. The DJ doing is...
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was that the moment that you thought, I want to be that DJ?
Yes. That was like, okay, that's my life. That's what I want to do. I love it.
Yeah.
I understand what he's doing. I want to know more. Yeah. So you get passionate about things, and
And
it became an obsession. Not a yeah. So I just wanted to do this, and there was no B plan for me. Like never consider anything else.
But that was the DJ side.
Yeah.
When did you decide to eventually start producing
Because
the music?
there's been a time in which the DJ producer became something.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
The
and-
nerd.
and
The
it wa-
nerd.
Yeah, it was much easier to get breakthroughs if you had your own records.
Yeah,
produced.
yeah, of course.
So I started saving money to go to a professional studio to put down my ADs and starting producing something. And it's how it went.
Nice.
Hello.
Yeah, it's still
Okay.
working. It's still
Still
working.
working, still
And
working.
did you also study something after school?
No.
It was school, DJ live.
Yeah. I mean, everything I learned it by myself, both DJing and with the sequencer.
Yeah.
So
And could you play records already, or did you learn when you were a producer?
what do you mean?
Like play the records, play the say CDJ or
Oh yeah.
Spin the
before,
vinyls.
Before that, vinyls. That's where I started. You know,
Yeah.
it started with the vinyls. I started buying the vinyls, then borrowing a turntable and borrowing another turntable and borrowing a mixer. We only can say borrowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't say more now.
No, of course not.
Sucks life.
Maybe rent. Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you started practicing
Yes.
when you were like 14, 15.
No, 13.
Oh, 13.
13.
Yeah, that's where I
Wow.
started. I was 13.
At a very young age.
Yeah.
And you were- and you were-
and I would spend my all afternoons and evenings there, you know?
Okay, but then how old were you when you released your first track? Then
I was 18 years old.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's a little later.
And from when could you make a living from music? Did it take a long time?
Yes. It took a few years, but
Okay.
you know, it worked.
Yeah, and did your tracks like worked? They worked in Italy, but when were they going to work in the Netherlands? When were you like booked full summers in Netherlands?
Oh, okay. I came here for the first time for Exclusive Italy. That was, I guess, 2001 or 2002. I don't know. Look it up on Party Flock.
Going to look it up. How was it like Exclusive Italy?
Yeah.
2002, I think.
11.
11.
No,
no,
that's
no.
that's the second.
Yeah, that's the second. But I guess 2000, October
Yeah.
2002.
With Daniele Mondello,
Yeah,
Luca
yeah.
Antonini, Super Marco May,
Yeah.
Techno Boy.
Yeah, it was a thing,
Zenith.
you know, and I didn't expect such a crowd. I mean, okay, I have to go to this. What was it called? Like Heineken Music Hall.
Yeah,
whatever. They have beers. I thought and they name it after a beer or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I just, you know, jumped on stage from behind, and there was a curtain, and I just saw the crowd. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Was it sold out?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. But
don't
it was
remember.
like full house.
Yeah.
Was it the biggest crowd you've performed for till then?
Yes. Yes.
Funny.
Didn't expect it. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But yeah.
And at the time, you were also at editions like of Club Tempo or something.
Yeah. Afterwards.
Afterwards, okay.
Afterwards. Yes.
How was that time like? Because you were there when Hardstyle was born.
Yes.
How was that like? How did you feel
It
when
was
you were doing these bookings?
It was different. It was different. It was different than Italy. It's completely another reality. You know. It was so exciting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you feel you really feel good about it when you think about it.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
was
but I was also a little unexperienced, you know. When you're young and you go to clubs and you're in the Netherlands, yeah,
of all places, of course. But
yeah, you have to watch out with.
If you're doing
yeah.
Not legal stuff,
young and reckless, you know.
yeah,
That's never. No.
so a lot of first timers in that
A
time.
lot of first timers. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
okay. Well, let's move on to 2004 because this instant classic came out.
li tax nga xam ne war na ko mat boo defee dund na ba am ñu naan 103 ou 104 ans dund bi Birame Mbaye ay doomam
Switch it off, man.
yeah.
Switch it off.
The telephone.
ay doomam
Was this still a stolen kick?
Made.
Made.
Yeah, but made and stolen. It was
You tweaked it or something?
Layered, like 3 layers of
yeah.
stuff.
Kick and reverse bass.
No, that was just for the kick. And,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
bass was sampled. Yeah,
But
but everything was sampled.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
You make like this music and then you come up with an idea. Well, maybe let's have a telephone or something, and then we make a track about it.
Well,
What's the story?
there was already something like that, you know.
Okay.
But it was just a sound, and I thought. Then I spoke with the guys, and they also sampled it. You know, you never know where it comes from. Then I'm like, okay, I'll use it. You know.
Yeah.
But there were some tracks already in the '90s with the.
With this sound.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
but released as Tatarola.
Yeah.
Why Tatarola? What's the-
Because I already had some releases out with Tatanka, and I didn't want my releases to compete with each other. So giving it another name, you know, they've done it many times with Saifam.
Okay, yeah,
They had
Saifam. Yeah.
so many nicknames, but the words just the same.
Yeah,
guys.
Saifam is from Technoboy, Tuneboy.
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of stuff. Yeah.
It was the same crew producing
Yeah.
all that stuff. So I did the same for myself when I had like more releases out
Yeah.
during the same.
Yeah, because you
Time.
also had like, Tatanka
But-
Bison.
Yeah, but Tatarola comes from there's Tatanka and Motorola, which was my phone when we did that.
You had a great inspiration.
Yeah.
And of course the sound in the
Yeah, that comes from
is
the
telephone
GSM
sound.
from
the Motorola.
From the Motorola. Yeah.
Nice.
It was coming.
Yeah.
Well, you had many aliases like Tatanka Bison, Zenza Labs.
Yeah.
It was only you, right?
Yeah,
Zenza
yeah,
Labs, Tatarola, Tatakt with Activator.
Yeah.
Ted and Zed with Zatox, and of course Wild Motherfuckers.
Yeah.
How did your friendship with Zatox come about?
I remember I was
Where did you meet?
at the phone.
Op
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
With the same Motorola phone.
No. Probably no. Maybe I called him the first time with the house phone.
Oh
home,
yeah.
home
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
You know, that was really old school. I can't bet on that. But anyway, I was releasing some stuff on Wicked, so I've got this record from him. I'm not sure whether it was Zyron or Smashing Guys or Zatox. There was something.
Okay.
And then I immediately called the guy at Wicked. I'm like, who's this guy? Like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, his name's Gerardo. He lives in Rome. Do you have his phone number? Then I called him, and he knew who I was, and then we started talking, and we thought, okay, maybe we can do something together.
Yeah.
And that's the way it went.
Ted and Zed was born.
Yeah,
Nice.
Because from the beginning, from what I saw, you had a lot of records together, both as Ted and Zed or Tatanka and Zatox, or as Wild Motherfuckers. How did you came up with the name Wild Motherfuckers, or was it just?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It was again a stolen sample. Don't kill me. Is it gonna be like I'm gonna get in trouble for this?
No,
If you
nobody listens to our podcast.
Okay. No, we had some vocals. The vocals from Fuck It Up.
Yeah,
And it goes, "Oh my wild motherfuckers,
Yeah,
give it
yeah,
up
right now,
You know,
yeah.
yeah.
So we thought, oh, this could be cool, like the wild motherfuckers.
yeah, that was it. That was the
that was
story.
it.
Okay.
That was it. And I remember asking my agency back then to include wild motherfuckers in the roster, and Daniel, the boss, said, "Yeah, man, but you have to change name. We can't have that. Good morning. I would like to book the wild motherfuckers."
Yeah.
But it worked.
It worked.
You're still getting booked as Wild Motherfuckers.
Yes, for the classics. Yes.
Yeah, for the classic. Yeah, of
Oh
course.
yeah, of course.
Well, we're going to talk about it later. But your set last year in Australia, Knockout.
Yeah.
It was more like
Yeah, we had a bit of everything.
the kick edits and
yes,
stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
We thought we make that new, fresh,
Best of both
especially
worlds. Yeah, of course.
especially for that.
Yeah,
nice.
What fits some things fitted.
Yeah.
And they worked.
Yeah.
Other things didn't.
One of our
we just didn't go further with the project, but we released a couple ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
one of the our most favorite Wild Motherfuckers tracks from the beginning is this one.
Never ever take me for a fool or a sucker, cause you will pay the price to a wild father mucker. I'm a bad father mucker, never out of style. I'm a never.
You're showing us your lighter. It says
It says Father Marker. It's unbelievable. I got it yesterday.
Yeah.
I have a funny story with this as well.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and it's strictly connected with the Fuck It Up, because I remember I was in Italghisa, was a club still is in Reggio Emilia in Italy.
okay.
And I just played this track for the first time there, and a guy asked me, "What is this?" And I told him,
Like the name or
and I told him it's the new Wild Motherfuckers. And he said, "You know Wild Father Muckers?" I went like,
that was Fuck It Up when you played Fuck It Up.
"Yes." And he's like, "You said Father Muck instead of motherfucker." Okay,
Because that's the vocal.
that was the
You
trigger.
said for the muck instead of motherfucker.
that triggered it.
Yes,
So,
I did.
Yeah, that triggered it.
Amazing story.
Yeah,
And who did the vocal? You
Harald
just-
Breistens.
Who's it?
Yeah, who is it? It's the voice from Lose My Mind.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay. Amazing.
yeah. Just to name one, but he was working with me already since. Oh, there was a very unlucky one, DJ's Grugel.
Okay.
That was
But-
that's also an alias of you.
Yeah, that was an alias. But,
DJ Scrugel.
but like Control the Mind, for instance.
Yeah. Okay.
That was Harald's
yeah,
voice.
that's
or,
from Sensa Labs, right?
Yeah, but also Shine Again, or most of the Wild Motherfuckers things.
Okay. Cool.
You know,
Cool.
still him. Always.
What's the best thing about your collaborations with Zatox?
The best thing
Yeah.
that, you know, especially in the past, we had different skill sets.
Okay.
Okay.
Like
I
like a division of
wa-
roles or something.
It was like really like a teamwork, because he didn't have to pay attention to the things he didn't like to do,
Yeah.
and for me was the
The
same.
same.
Was a,
Okay.
was a good match.
was
He
perfect.
He was more about creating sounds, and I was more about crazy ideas and and structures and buildings and that stuff.
And then he was the sound maker, and then you can put it together.
Yeah, and then it was easy.
Yeah. Nice.
After that, or well, you released this Father Marker track on Zenza Tracks. That was your own label.
Yeah.
How was it like to have your own label? Was it stressful or did
No,
you like
no,
it?
no. It was not stressful at all, because I only released there my own things.
Okay.
that was my necessity.
Yeah.
I started working together with Zenith back
Yeah.
in the days, and
Zenith DJ.
we made DJs United. That was a label, but I was not. I understood that it also had to fill in this catalog with other producers' music, but somehow I didn't feel like, oh, I'm going to one direction. I don't feel like sharing
Yeah.
the not the stage, but like my face or whatever I was standing for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wanted to create a project that was going towards one direction. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to have other music made in another way.
Yeah, and you already had the experience with the contract that you signed for 20 years. So you had the experience like, no, I don't want to do that anymore.
No, then
Have my own label.
I opened my own label,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still with Federico Zenith.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, yeah.
At that time, around 2005, you were at the biggest parties and festivals. 2005, you played for the first time at DEF CON. You closed the Yellow when it wasn't French Core and
And,
the Tempo.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet. 2005, first time Hardbase together with Super Marco May. 2006, first time Climax.
Yeah.
How was the time? And how's the feeling about those first big parties? Like,
It flew by, man.
Yeah?
It really looks like yesterday. I don't know. But it was cool. It was new. It was fresh. But now it's different. I mean, there's another consciousness about parties, etc. But I was feeling a lot of pressure back then.
back then, okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because I was more insecure about myself, the productions, and I was listening to other people's music, and I'm like, fuck, this sounds good. This sounds really good.
But you,
Are my tracks sounding this good? I don't know.
Okay.
Always getting hypercritical about things. So
who were the persons in that time you looked up to? Was it like Technoboy, Tuneboy, Brennan Hart at that time? already?
I was looking around to everybody what was happening, but I didn't want to go around no one. I mean, or behind or following, whatever you want to name it. I had my style, and I just wanted to develop my style different than other people. So I wasn't really paying too much attention.
Yeah. Okay. Starting in 2008, I think things went fast for you because big hits came out, such as DJ's Live, Yellow, Gangsta, Kickin' Ass, Loops and Things, the last three together with Satox. But a big personal favorite for me is this one.
様子は東京のナイトライフに端的に現れています。
You played it yesterday also, right? You didn't play it?
No. The team was up to 2006.
Ah, okay. Did you play the Bison and Quakers track?
No, Terra played it before me.
Oh, really?
I take it as a compliment.
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
of
of
course,
course.
yeah.
Always giving me good vibes.
Yeah, me too, me too.
Yeah, it's also one of my favorites, this one. It's amazing.
Summer breeze, even when it's fucking cloudy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Still.
What does this track mean to you? Like, was it the first big track, or
I don't know.
you don't know?
No, because there's I mean, big track. Define it.
Yeah, like your first big hit,
But
main
like
stages.
yeah, but to me, like that, there were like even like Amphetamine, the B side from Free Spirit 2. That was a big one for me, but
Yeah.
it was big for the scene I was.
I was in that
playing.
time. Yeah.
But what was the first track you thought? Yeah, I'm finally getting some. You feel like you get attention. That people really like your tracks.
I couldn't name one track.
Okay,
Okay.
No,
it's all your tracks then, of course. People are
it's
Yeah.
it's a path.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Slowly,
You saw yourself getting bigger
okay,
and bigger,
this-
and more people coming to your sets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not one track in particular.
No.
No. Okay.
Had you been to Japan before making this track?
No, I've always been super fascinated by the Japanese culture, and
But still never been to Japan.
no,
Is it on your bucket list?
it is, it is.
But
It's-
you're here now.
Yeah.
You're in the Netherlands now, and why not in Japan?
this is closer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I work here.
Yeah, of course.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I would be in the sun
Nah,
somewhere,
Yeah.
of course, or maybe in Japan, of course. Then.
or
Yeah.
in Japan.
Yeah.
If
Nice.
there's one record that gets played a lot at every classics party, it's this one.
Nowadays, technology.
Of course.
Africa.
This record is so unique with all those drums and voices and
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say the follow up from Tokyo, but Tokyo was really the first one talking about cultural things, about music from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
When you hear something from a culture, they do it there. They
Yeah.
do it there. So Tokyo was born like that, and then I'm like, maybe I'm gonna do something with African drums, you know. Then the story came up.
but it's a really cool track. Is it full of samples?
Huh?
Is it full of samples?
Or did
Or
the
did you
samples
make all
yourself?
those drums and all those voices?
The voices, yeah,
Yeah, of course.
original voices.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Then, samples. There's so drums. Drum wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The drums are the how you say stock EXS
yeah.
from Logic.
Those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a pattern. I just
No, of course.
I just built it with a sampler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Africa?
Have I ever been to Africa?
Morocco, Egypt.
Could be.
South Africa.
No, not South Africa. But I lived in Tenerife, which is
Ah,
Yeah.
pretty-
Okay.
close
pretty,
by.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an island close to the island.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah. It's closer to Europe. Closer to Africa than to Europe. That's what I mean.
Politically, is not.
Not, but
yeah.
geographically, well, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we're talking about records with a like a cultural theme or country as a theme, we also have this one.
That closes up everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But this one is a little louder than all your tracks before. What's the story behind this record?
Exactly what it says. I mean, there was one. I really wanted to do something else beside Tokyo and Africa, and then I thought about
Because
even
for you
what influenced me, like those scales. I'm not new to using those dark scales, which belong more to, in my head at least, with the Middle East. It's more minor chords, like minor scales,
yeah.
Yeah.
but little twisted with a mysterious edge. So I've always been fascinated by that.
So,
Yeah.
so before you were more producing in the major scales, and then you went into the minor scales. That's what you mean, right? Something like this.
No,
Or the-
no.
or
I've
the-
always, anything that I produced was all minor.
Oh, like that. Okay.
Minor.
Yeah,
For the guys listening, just listening hard. So this is like producer talk, right?
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever thought about making more tracks related to like a cultural theme? Because we have Africa, Tokyo, Arabica, but also Mexico. We have Italia.
Oh yeah. Those two are like DJ tools.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
did
that
you
one
think about
the
more-
Mexico was really like a DJ tool I made in 1 hour before going to Mexico. Actually.
Oh yeah. So
there
you got
I
you got
had a tour there, and I thought, okay, let's make something
quick
Yeah.
inspiration and then make something.
but it was too quickly done. Italia was something I made for exclusive Italy Part 2.
Yeah,
Was
or
2012.
versus Italy versus Holland?
No, that was 2006.
Okay,
So we had a second
second exclusive Italy.
exclusive
Yeah.
Italy in 2010, I guess.
That was 11. What I
Or 11. Was 11?
what I just up. Yeah,
Yeah.
exclusive Italy 2011.
Okay, 10, 11.
But have you ever thought about making
that's, of course that's
making more like tracks like these?
tried, but I mean, you have to have the right inspiration, and also I think it can get boring if you do something on that page
Yeah.
and it's already okay. We heard this before,
Yeah.
you know. Then it becomes. I prefer having less but more iconic ones.
Yeah, of course, of course. Talking about iconic ones, a really big guilty pleasure, and I think a really underrated track of yours is this one.
And you stand up and you don't give up.
You closed your Defcon Magenta set with this one.
Yeah.
We were there.
We were there.
It was chef's kiss.
Perfect closing.
It was, yeah, really.
I like it to end the sets, especially when it's banging and then
Close
you
off
end
with
up
this.
like this.
Yeah. And it's also a little note to all our listeners who don't know this track. Listen to it. It's Tatanka Don't Give Up. 2013 already, 12 years ago. It says, "Don't give up."
Yeah.
Does it have a meaning for you, or did you
Oh, yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah,
put
yeah,
something in the track?
The thing is, there's been a radical change in my life when I understood that people were really paying attention to my music and the lyrics, and I felt sort of responsible in giving some real message in music besides the music, like the lyrics, you know. I've heard people saying and approaching me like, "Man, your music healed me. I really heard what you wanted to say," and that changed my life.
Yeah,
So
that's what this track is about.
yes, this one and "Shine Again," for instance,
Yeah.
they're all more spiritual
Yeah,
tracks, but also one of my latest ones, "Eternity." If you listen to the lyrics,
you wrote the lyrics yourself.
I always do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So halfway through, we always do a short round of questions.
Yeah.
So we have some questions, ready for you. You've played at mega parties and festivals, Defcon in the Netherlands, in Australia, EDC Las Vegas, Hardbase, Cubase, Decibel, and I could go on and on and on. What was your favorite party or festival to play at ever?
This is a question that I always get.
Yeah.
And my answer is always the same, because every experience is not comparable, because the emotions that you get from the connection with a crowd, like 200 people in a small club, is something completely different than a big event. It's another experience.
But if you have to choose,
I can't. It's like, if you have to choose, who would you choose, mommy or daddy?
Yeah.
on.
You have to
Okay.
choose. No.
Okay.
So more the smaller parties gives you more.
No.
it's other vibes.
Yeah.
Just something completely different. When you get something more intimate,
Yeah.
you have another kind of connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And you cannot choose between the big and the small parties.
Can you choose between eating and drinking?
Drinking for sure.
Drink.
but you'll die eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay.
Okay. What is the best hardstyle record ever?
Mi appello al quinto emendamento.
That's an Italian hardstyle track?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
What does it mean?
No, it's like in America, the Fifth Amendment, you know, when they choose not to answer.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. But then your best solo record.
Oh, man.
These questions.
Tell me one.
Africa or
Africa.
Africa.
Don't
Okay,
give up.
okay.
Maybe
Don't
because
give up.
That one is a little bit more inspirational.
Yeah, those are all my babies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you
can
cannot
choose.
choose between the
Okay,
babies.
okay.
Yes, okay.
Well, other question. Do you have like a dream collab or an artist you want to work with? Except for Michael Jackson, because it's really going to be hard. to,
It's very hard. Yeah. Quincy Jones, his producer. That would be something.
Yeah, I think so.
That would be something.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
But he's dead.
Oh, also.
Fuck. Oh.
So that will
Yeah.
also be very hard.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. What would you like to say to young hardstyle producers?
Or producers in general. DJs.
To give them a good advice or something?
Try to come up with something that is your own thing that no one else does. And no one else will ever do that like you do it. If it's not your thing and you're trying to emulate something or someone, you'll always be the copy of something or someone. And
Yeah.
your true self will never emerge.
Okay.
And I know these days
That's
it's very hard because there's an industry and they set standards and there's always someone looking up to someone else. But this results in sometimes it can result in very sterile music.
Yeah.
yeah. Music that sounds the same.
Yes,
Empty.
structure-wise,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes just filling up stuff without a meaning. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
oh, let's find a vocal sample and then it works. I've always worked the other way around. What do I want to say?
Yeah.
And then starting with the concept, writing the lyrics, and having a specific idea about something, and those tracks remain
Yeah.
because they
are
have
still played.
because they have an identity.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you have
And-
to have to tell your story with music. It's your tool to bring yourself out to the world.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you follow the hardstyle scene a bit right now, nowadays?
No,
No?
No.
Okay. So you can't pick like cool young producers from 2025?
I've been listening to stuff, but it all sounds very distant to my feelings for music where I'm coming from.
Yeah. So there's no
And
producer nowadays?
It's a long way. It's a long way.
It's far away from your concept of the music.
Yeah, especially because everything has to happen in such a short time. You don't have the time. I mean, to tell a story.
No.
There's no
New track, new track, new track.
It all has to be
level,
quick.
the level of attention is
Very
below
low.
zero.
Yeah.
Below zero, and there's this urge of dopamine,
Yeah.
which comes from we learned it and had it from social medias, but
Yeah.
it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
So
Yes, but
you're always searching for a new thing to get a rush from, and it has to catch your attention immediately. And I don't know. It doesn't work for me that way.
Yeah, so it's
but
far from
I'm
your...
I'm old.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm old.
Okay,
I'm old.
okay,
I'm
okay.
proud to be old.
yeah.
And proud to be loud.
I'm proud to see the.
But
I'm
still
proud to see art in a certain way.
yeah. But do remember that there are still a lot of people that are still waiting for tracks with a story. Just so you know.
Yeah, but it's the new generation should pick it up, and there should be a new Tatanka, a new Zatox, a new someone else,
But it's still
saying some stories.
because there are still so many classics parties that has a meaning that people are still in love with the music and the stories that the music tell.
I
And
guess.
that is still these
guess.
days with the new music as well.
I guess. But I don't know the new music, so I can't have a.
Yeah.
I can't judge.
We can hear. We can. Not now, but maybe
now.
after.
Yeah.
No,
Other question.
The thing is, when it was my love, always been passion for music, and now the scene I belong with, like new music wise, I don't find any connection. I can hear if something is well produced or more rushly produced.
Yeah.
But you don't feel.
I feel the need of something of sounding like someone else and doing these things because it's there. It's a trend, but I don't know. It feels like back in the days we also were in a box, but we had more options.
Yeah.
I mean, the result is what sounds like.
Yeah. And now
I was done because I was every time skipping the top 100 and I couldn't find nothing.
Yeah.
And after a while I gave up
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Don't give up.
Yeah, I don't give up with myself with other things,
Yeah.
but if you see a pear tree and you wait for a lemon, you're the fool one.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I recognize that thing has evolved into another tree.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Other question. What do you do besides playing and producing?
cooking, drinking wine.
What's your
enjoying
favorite?
life.
What's your favorite wine?
I can't name one, but I'm into Tuscany.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Italian wines from Tuscany.
Nice.
That's my best region.
And what's the dish you cook best?
You come home
Um,
and you're like, I want to eat something.
meat. Especially with the good red wine.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So no pasta, no pizza.
I don't eat that a lot.
Okay.
No, it's been months that I don't eat pasta or pizza.
That's funny because I think
Pasta. Yes, I had pasta after a while because I had a detox. So from sugars, carbs, I had to cut
Okay.
everything, and so ever since, no bread, no pasta, no pizza. No, but
No carbs.
but I survived.
Yeah, of course you will survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything special on your rider?
I fancy gin tonic. That's my
Okay.
That's my
With
drink.
special gin and special tonic? Like
Not-
the Fever Tree tonic or
Not really. But I'm good with the Schweppes,
Okay.
With the fever is better, yeah.
Yeah.
But if they don't have it, I'm not a pain. Yes.
Okay, nice drink.
I just ask for Bombay gin. Nothing so sophisticated or super expensive, but I
It's
don't
just
want
a regular
I don't
gin,
want those. Yeah, but I don't want those from the discount. Then it tastes like shit, and the day after you're gonna have a bad headache.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, last question in this part.
round, yeah.
Suppose you get your own exclusive at the Heineken Musical or the Avals Live, how it's called now, with unlimited budget. Who would you like to have play at your exclusive or a exclusive? If it's an Italy exclusive or
Tatanka exclusive.
Tatanka exclusive.
You know what I think? I've always wanted to have maybe there were like exclusive parties.
Yeah.
They're still doing that.
No,
I think they
stopped.
stopped. Yeah.
Okay.
But they did it till like 2 years ago or
Yeah, the
something.
exclusive.
I would like to make one, like the first ones, like Dana did, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to have a party. Myself, I play open till end.
Okay.
And then
Solo.
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 So no Zatox, no Zenith DJ. Or maybe they can play your collabs together or something.
You stay at the decks and they come for like half an hour.
I mean, Zenith is dead. So
Oh,
Ah,
that
okay.
would
Yeah.
be
That
a
would
little
be-
difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah. Gerardo. Yeah, having some acts.
Having your friends on stage with you.
I mean, it could be both ways.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to have a performance and play from the beginning till the end, because to me that was the spirit of exclusive.
Yeah.
If you play and you play a 8-hour solo set,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a bomb, because you're gonna give all of yourself in all your facades.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you have-
I reckon if I had to have a party like that with other acts, that would be for sure Zatox. I would call TNT. I would call maybe Davide Sonar, Activator. You know, the ones I worked with, and friends.
Yeah.
Mostly, yes.
Okay, cool.
If there are promoters listening,
Yeah.
I think this would be a perfect, like a throwback party. I would love
maybe.
to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's someone
but
listening, please arrange this.
I've been proposed doing this in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Can't say by who, but
That's okay. That's okay.
the thing that didn't work for me, because I'm a night creature
They want to do it
during the day,
during the day.
Yeah.
and I'm like,
That's a real.
during the day I should start playing at 2 p.m. And,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
ah,
You want to start at
doesn't
10
feel
p.m.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
10 p.m. and end at 5. But
Yeah.
now things here are a bit different.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because of, I think it's because
after
of
COVID,
COVID,
there's been,
it turned around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but to me the magic of the night,
Yeah. Can imagine.
something else.
So let's go back to your career. We had some short questions. Let's talk about Well Motherfuckers,
I'm ready.
because you guys really did make legendary tracks. Wildest, We Don't Care. Yeah, and in my opinion, and I think Thomas, also your opinion, the best hard bass anthem ever made.
It's coming to your face and it leaves no trace. It's my big, fat, hard bass.
What was it like making the anthem for hard bass?
Was cool. Yeah.
What was hard bass for you?
What?
Hard bass. What was that for
Yeah.
you? That party. What does it
meant-
mean
what
for
It was
you?
a fucking iconic party, man.
Yeah.
Legendary location.
The teams.
like the Gelladome.
Yeah.
The team. I stuck with Yellow for a few years, and I also made the track Yellow.
Yeah.
just because of that. And we readopted that for the Wild Motherfuckers live set at Hard Bass.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah.
And it was a great show. I just looked it
Yeah.
up on YouTube. It was, yeah.
Great. So
Hey, we were
really
just
scrambling our heads to do something cool with all the parts, and let everything fit and fall into each other with the sort of entertaining thing, original, you know,
yeah.
and a few wow moments like the Yellow Submarine thing.
Yeah.
Like we all live it young. Who could have thought about that?
Yeah.
Like 30,000 hostile heads all waving with the Beatles. You know, sometimes you have to do crazy things.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what you were famous for with Well Motherfuckers, like the crazy things, the
Yeah.
crazy tracks.
the crazy
And
kicks,
crazy
and
kicks, yeah.
with the nice crunchy kicks.
And we were just talking about tracks with a certain team, like an area or a culture. And one of your most famous Well Motherfuckers records is this one.
The good, the bad, the ugly, and the wild motherfuckers.
Still does the trick, right? On the dance floor.
Yeah.
The wild motherfuckers.
There's a story. You can tell there's a story.
Yeah, okay.
Is it this one?
Got a gun in my hand and a bullet with your name. Finger on the trigger, click, clack, okay? One slug for your head, another for your chest. Bang, bang, motherfucker, it's the Wild Wild West.
I went looking to your page and I saw a movie
Yeah.
with this track. You were there during my set 2024. Yeah.
Well, we come from a place nearby at Westland, and that's a place where a lot of hardstyles played. And if you play this track, even on a non-festival party or a non-hardstyle party, everyone knows
one is
Wild
it.
Wild West.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So there's a cool story about this one. And you said wildest, and so there was this guy with this T-shirt, Tatanka, the wildest motherfucker.
Yeah, that's where Wildest come from.
Wildest came from there. But then when I wrote the lyrics for when I
Sorry, yeah.
when I wrote the lyrics with Wildest, sound designers from the Wild West. So
Yeah.
that was a hint that we were going to do. I'm like, Wild West, and I said, Gerardo, I already have an idea for the next one.
Oh, yeah.
We have to do one theme-based, track
Western.
about Western.
The Wild
You know.
Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was crazy to put. It was like a big puzzle because so many ideas and.
Yeah. Because did you have a particular Western movie in mind when making this one?
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, of course.
precies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Amazing.
did
And
you
then the face distortion.
and did you make all those Western sounds yourself?
Oh, there are libraries. You know?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a this track, man. We love it a lot.
If
We
you
love it a
listen,
lot.
there are like horses and wipes and whatever.
It's so iconic. Yeah.
Yahoo! We really wanted to put everything in there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So-
and it is everything is in there, and
Yeah.
it's one of the tracks that you like. The mid intro is super nice. Then the main
good drive.
the main drop is cool, but a lot of people forget about like the third drop because I really like that one with the the big wild motherfuckers. Yeah, this one
Yeah, we
with the kick.
we
and
needed something else to close it. Then I'm like, okay, let me puzzle it a bit, and I took care about the outro like that.
yeah. But this is
Like it here.
yeah. It's this track, man, means a lot for the hardstyle history.
Yeah, it's really dear to me. Also, I mean, there's been a lot of work.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
You were on the Defcon Legends, right?
yeah.
And that was this track.
No, it
No?
was Africa.
Oh, Africa, of course.
Yeah, they made a
okay.
mashup between Africa and Tokyo.
Ah,
Of course, they
Yeah.
couldn't play both.
no, of course not. No.
Next record, everyone knows this. Nowadays, it would still work on the dance floor, and those kicks are so fat, so big, so
Crunchy.
crunchy.
You're so crunchy. Okay.
Oh, daddy. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Me so horny, me so crunchy.
KO put on the next track.
Wait, sorry. I was.
Yeah, into the palm tree beer.
Oh shit! I started up another program.
I was making the bridge.
Here we go.
Next track. This still works, right? And these kicks are so heavy.
Back in the day, this was the hardest track.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
the-
was the last track of the whole party. Zatox closed with it. You closed
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Zani.
Zani
We saw
closed-
Zani
yeah,
closing
yeah.
with this.
Yeah. And then, oh,
Yeah, here we go, y'all.
How did the crowd react when you first played this track?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't expect it, but it was cool.
How did you get those kicks so fat, so full, so...
That kick, you should ask Gerardo. because
Gerardo
he's-
made this
yeah,
kick.
Yeah. Gerardo made that.
Well,
game,
maybe
yes.
you can share his phone number and we can visit Gerardo for some podcast afterwards.
Where's my phone?
Yeah, it's okay.
Because this track
yeah.
is the track of 2013.
Of course, I think in this time there was already a side raw hardstyle, more dark hardstyle.
Yeah, but
going.
it's always been there, you know. It didn't have a name yet, but there was more this dark side of hardstyle. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
always been there.
But this,
But this was something else. This
Yeah,
was,
of course.
This was a
This
wild,
was not
a
really-
wild card.
yeah, this was
a
not
wild
really
card.
dark, but really heavy.
Yeah,
I must say, back in the day.
yeah.
And we were all waiting for this track at the end.
Okay.
Like, come on, is he going to play it? And then eventually, I remember Zatox coming with Red Alert, which was also really loud, and he ended his tracks with that. So that was a little bit louder than Wild Motherfucker, than Natural Born Raver. So, okay, you had Natural Born Raver, and then Red Alert, which was even more louder. But
Yeah. and after Natural Born Raver and Wild Wild West, you guys brought Alarma, the Trail Seeker remix. But after that, it got quiet around Wild Motherfuckers.
Yes. Because we had different views about what the future of Wild Motherfuckers should be.
Okay.
you just made
Also working for the remix of Drill Seeker, it was so dark. Yeah, we all felt like, oh man, it's dark. I really feel it in my stomach.
yeah.
You know, almost feeling you uncomfortable.
You wanna live?
Yeah. But that happens when you make a remix, which is
course,
not yours,
with existing vocals,
The
yeah.
core is already there, the message is already there, and the atmosphere is already there.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge, but at the end, I don't think we will be remembered for that. You know,
No.
we'll be remembered for other things for
Yeah.
sure, which are more Wild Motherfucker style.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And also Knock You Down was an okay track.
Knock You Down was yeah.
But
Hit
the
the
style
ground.
the style was evolving rapidly. You
Yeah.
know, so you really had to be on top of your game and say, okay, what do I want to do now? And Zatox, he had his own new style, new ideas. I had my old ideas.
Yeah.
And so that was not no longer fitting. You know, it was no longer fit
No.
for
Okay.
for production because
So
every
no-
time, oh, is this gonna work? Is that gonna work? Like Knock You Down, for instance, we made a version that, you know, the one you let me hear before.
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
Outside of the podcast.
Yeah, it was Hard
well-
Bass 2014. You played that one.
Yeah. We played that, and then we felt like, is it good enough for nowadays? Does it fit? Then we took the parts that we considered still good, and
And it made it a little bit.
gave it a new jacket, like
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
So, if I'm understanding this right, there's no new Wild Motherfuckers tracks coming.
No. There was that set we made in Australia,
Yeah.
and we made refreshments of
Yeah, some nice kick edits.
many tracks, and we picked 2, and those were released.
Yeah, it was Natural Born Raver.
Yes, and Who is Calling?
Who's Calling,
2000
yeah.
2024. Yeah.
But are the other edits going to be released?
No,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
no, it's something cool for a party
Yeah.
for that time frame.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. Okay.
But
Okay.
Yeah.
And
okay.
we just want all the tracks released.
Yeah.
It's just it just sounds amazing, and
I don't know.
that's-
we're just
we think-
fanboys.
you know,
Yeah.
when you think a track is not ready, it's not
Yeah.
ready.
No. Okay.
when you think, but we already think that it's like
Yeah.
perfect already. But
Yeah,
of course,
I know.
Okay. Hey, let's talk about Tatanka again, because you released several reloads, like Arabica Reload, Tokyo Reload. Do you think it's important to keep music up to date, like with kicks and sounds?
No, I tried, and if I play Arabica nowadays, I play the original. If I play,
Oh, really?
If I play Tokyo, I play the original. I don't play the
The reload version.
reload. No, those were just refreshing, maybe to have a slightly different sound design or some aspect or a kick edit or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the original ones have that spirit that's born that way, and it shouldn't be touched if
Yeah.
not with maybe proper remastering.
Okay.
So that's my idea.
Yeah. Okay. After Classica and your Emporium anthem, Victorious and Glorious, things got a little quieter from Tatanka. Was that where you lost the scene? Something like you just told? Was that the moment?
There was a moment where you sort of had to produce something and come up with something, and I've always been very, very slow, and so also feeling the pressure of releasing some stuff, and you think in your head it's not ready, but then you always think like that, and then just throwing out stuff because you have to.
Okay.
That was killing it.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay. So that was why, you produced less tracks at that time.
Yes, because it's a trend. There's something working, and you have to include certain features in your tracks, and sometimes it takes zero time doing that, or very little. Other times it takes forever, and still you're not happy with it because it's something forced. It's something that you wouldn't do, but you have to do it. I mean, it's a little bit like what I said about modern things. Everyone looks what each other is doing, and it's been like that also in the past, but we had more space, I guess.
Yeah.
That was the time in which I started feeling like, I don't really like this.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
having to do this to stay on top of my game. And I thought, okay, let's cancel all the modern hardstyle gigs, and I just do classics because that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So also back in the day were already the classics. So in 2014,
15.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I saw you for the first time in 2015
Okay.
at Cubase. You performed on the main stage together with TNT as Triple T from Italy.
Okay.
This was a super nice combination, true Italian power on that main stage. And my question is, who or what brought you guys together for that appearance? Because I think I saw you again at DEF CON 2016, also at Triple T from Italy. How was that combination?
Q-Dance came up with that.
Ah, okay.
So they're like, would you like to do that?
Yeah.
And we are like good friends from back in the days.
Yeah.
Still calling sometimes.
Yeah.
So
And
there was already a bonding.
yeah, of course.
And we come from the same country and the same backgrounds,
Yeah.
So
And then
been
playing.
there since
So
forever.
it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
That worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you opened up with your ode to the Italian national anthem with Italia, Tatanka Italia.
Okay. Yeah.
But one track that also caught my eye during Cubase was this one.
Discotheque.
Discotheque, yes. You also released it 2015. What was your inspiration for this track? Or
It was an old sample, an old sample from a track. It was exactly saying something like that.
okay,
You know where your teenagers go, 5 and going
To the discotheque.
They go to the discotheque.
those vocals are so typically Tatanka for me.
Yeah, but I rewrote the story, making it bigger, like
Okay.
larger story.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a guy doing that, and he fucking nailed it. It's the same vocal from. I made a track with Kronos called AMB. That was a funny track with a very serious guy talking like that. A little like the news guy from the Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
And after that, I'm like, okay, he has that kind of voice that could do like storytelling, a bit like TV host or a news host.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the inspiration for discotheque.
For discotheque. And 2 years later, it sounded like you were renewing your sound a bit. I think I heard it first within this track. Your sound did sound newer or something. Do you think that yourself?
This is my most emotional part. It's like in the triad with Shine Again, Don't Give Up, and A Brighter Day.
Yeah.
So it's a completely other way of expressing myself. It's not the rough part, but it's more
Emotional.
melodic
yeah.
and emotional. Yeah.
It's so good to see you
It's
like
amazing, yeah.
to see you like rocking your own tracks, being
No,
fan of
because-
your own tracks.
Yeah, because I did not expect to hear this track because it's so dear to me, as it holds a very special message, like spiritual, and our connection from this realm to above. I didn't even think that you were aware of the track because it was it was something I've done, but the results.
Yeah. No,
Because there was
but maybe not on the dance floor. But I think if people listen to this now,
Yeah,
And-
it's getting very good on
Yeah.
on Spotify, for instance.
Yes.
And I didn't expect it.
but still, if you start playing this one as well in your classic sets, I know for sure that people are going to go crazy.
sometimes
for
I
it.
do. Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I know for
not,
sure
Not
because-
here. Not here. And I never thought about
Why
playing
not?
this
Why not here?
Why not?
Because you
The
know,
true hostile lovers know this one.
Everyone has his own
The true Tatanka lovers.
style, and I think I do other things better. Those tracks were like an experimental thing for me.
But they
to
work.
go-
It worked.
Yeah, but when I hear that, and I again
Yeah.
wrong, but compare it
Yeah.
with other people's music,
Yeah.
like in a euphoric thing, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's fitting better. That sound is maybe this is a little off.
Yeah, but-
and
yeah.
and I always look at the track like that there was a moment that I stopped playing Don't Give Up because I didn't like the way the kick pitched down
Yeah.
in the very low. I like
It went down too
man.
much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. well,
There was a losing of pressure because I started pitching too early,
yeah.
too close to the
Okay. Yeah.
attack, and that
Yeah.
was and when you hear that and
Yeah.
you keep hearing that. Then I stopped playing the track, and after all these years, I'm like, but it's good.
Yeah.
I
It
don't
is,
hear
yeah.
anything super crazy there, but back then I was making my mind crazy. Like, fuck, no.
But isn't there still some? Of course, you released it, but you didn't think about maybe changing it then to another edit
Or a reload.
or a reload or whatever.
No, because I learned that the reload, like Tokyo, for instance,
Yeah.
I don't know.
didn't work.
I end up playing the original. So.
Yeah. Which
So-
I think is of course always better. But yeah, also with this one, man, Brighter Day. This
Yeah,
one,
Brighter Day, wow.
and this one, I know it's like way more euphoric. But if you start playing like Wild Motherfuckers or all your tracks before this, the more louder ones, maybe Arabica, but you can still put this one in, and everyone immediately switches to like this euphoric feeling of this track, A Brighter Day.
Maybe
Immediately, I know for sure.
when I did this track, maybe it was already. I don't know if my best time here, not for
No,
sure.
okay.
So it was that moment where I'm even though I would play something,
Yeah.
I'm maybe not convinced or it wouldn't land
Yeah.
in a right way. Maybe it's something to
And do you feel that?
play it in the hardstyle classics now?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
think so.
I'll try.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe
I've
and
never considered this because it's like, that doesn't work.
you should, like back in the day, it was, I think, at least I think it was always starting like more euphoric and then always going louder, 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 and then end with Natural Born Raver.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I think it goes a little bit more up and down.
Yeah, and,
like
and you
this.
close with Don't Give Up.
And then you
for
close
example.
with don't, but maybe close
With A Brighter
sometimes
Day.
With A Brighter Day. If you never, at least that's what from what
you
I
never
understand
tried.
is that you never
Yeah.
tried or never played this track.
I'll try. No, I never played it in hardstyle classics environment because to me that was not a classic.
But okay,
okay,
it's
2017, yeah.
2017, but
Yeah.
We want to consider
It's
also
already-
another track to play at a classic set.
Okay.
It's a collab with Zatox, and it's this one. This track
Also
gives me
motivational.
the old Zatox and Tatanka drive, but in 2017.
Right now!
and oh my god, this kick, man.
This kick, yeah. Zatox and Tatanka right now, 2017 on
Yeah.
Scantrax.
I started headbanging. I had headbanged my
Okay,
my
My
face
microphone,
into
yeah.
the microphone.
Do you guys still have this drive, this old Zatox and Tatanka drive when you were in the studio together?
No, we are no longer in the studio for years already. I
Okay.
yeah, we're very often at the phone, but we talk about completely other stuff, other subjects.
Okay.
Or the daily life.
This track, yeah, it's such the old drive, but within the newer. Can we do like the second climax?
drop?
Second drop. I love the second drop, man.
Of course, man.
Sit on their ass doing nothing.
And this vocal also.
Waiting for things to
Is this
get
the same vocal as?
Yeah.
But you
It's
don't
knock you down, right? Is this the same vocal as this knock you down?
Yeah, and Natural Born Raver
Yes,
and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Also a bit forgotten track, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also belongs. It also belongs with I mean, it's no man's land, I guess. Like also Shine Again.
Yeah.
I consider that as something I've done, but they were back then not even considered classics because they were too new.
Yeah, too new.
But nowadays this could easily fit because the music nowadays is completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm with you with this. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
but also Adaro also has made some new tracks, but in the old style and in his classic sets he plays his
Yeah.
newest tracks.
Yeah.
But because of its like the classic sound,
It's the same vibe. It's the
same
yeah.
vibe. The same sounds, but then maybe mastered different or something like that. But that's why we kind of try to say that you can play A Brighter Day, even though it's 2017.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still like, what is it? 8 years ago.
8 years ago, something. Yeah.
That's I know it sounds
feels like
stupid.
yesterday,
Yes,
man.
Yeah.
but it sounds stupid that a track from 2017 is classic, but
It is.
in those 8 years, if you count how many freaking hardstyle tracks have been released, and then let's say from 2017 to 2011 is also 8 years. Maybe there's been way more tracks released, of course, in the latest 8 years than back then. So that's why, kind of, just play all your tracks, man. It's everything is what you made is so classic. It's so
Yeah, but
Yeah.
those couple tracks they just didn't come to mind. Like
Now they do.
yeah, but it's like okay, it's been already 8 years ago. Oh fuck.
yeah. Already, and next year it's going to be 9 years.
Okay.
When is going to be your next classic set here in the Netherlands?
I don't know.
Nothing is booked yet.
I just had one yesterday, man.
But yeah, you didn't play
Well,
Friday today, so
we
had
stay in
we had to
contact.
make the podcast a day earlier.
We stay in contacts, and next set we are there.
Okay.
And you're going to play right
Yeah,
now
we're
and
gonna
Brighter
rem-
Day.
Okay, but I want you to wear Right Now t-shirt.
Perfect.
And you wear Brightest Day t-shirt.
Perfect.
Yeah, if
With your
if
head
that
on
is
it.
the deal.
That's the
With your
deal.
head,
That's the
yeah,
deal.
we can cut your head out and
Okay, yeah, no.
We will do that. We will do that.
We'll do it.
Okay.
it's on the record now.
Valerio, back in the Corona days, you came up with Power to the Crowd, a nice reverse bass record. It's the last track of today in this podcast. What was the Corona time for you like, and what does this track say?
There
about
was
it, or-
there was a lot of distraction. There was a lot of misinformation. There was a lot of it was a dark time, but
especially for you in the northern part of Italy, I think.
I was in Tenerife back then.
Okay,
and,
perfect.
And I started my own podcast just to have my people come together.
Yeah.
I was doing live streams on Facebook. I had like 50,000 people connected. That
Yeah.
was going like
Crazy.
But then that thing evolved into a more mature thing.
Mm.
So
Can you still?
I kept giving messages.
Yeah.
To the community. There was a strong community. It
And
still
then-
is, even though the podcast have stopped now because I moved and my studio is still in the building. So that's
And one of those messages was power to the crowd.
yes, absolutely. Because we stop one second. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the power is always to the crowd. The power is always to the people. Power is always in us as a community.
Yeah.
And we should stick together for things as
Yeah.
we do on a dance floor,
Yeah.
being brothers equal and recognizing things. And when we stand up for those things, we unite. We have the power. We can change things.
Yeah.
So it was a message for that dark time, but it always works. I mean, I wish I could play that in the classic set.
Almost. I think
But
almost.
it's-
Yeah, but
we're
maybe
almost
you
there.
it has the reverse bass,
Yeah.
the old reverse bass.
We are connected, alive, from darkness to light. We raise up
From
our
darkness to
hands
light,
till the day
yeah.
that we die. Our voices get stronger, uniting to shout, scream it out loud. Power to the crowd.
Yeah, this is the mid intro part, of course. I can skip a little bit to the second part.
Yeah, of course. We heard a lot of kind of kicks in this track. What's your favorite kick ever?
Who?
Or is it one of your babies too?
No. It's different parts and it works differently for each part. There's been a separation of mood. There's more a party drive. There's more a direct drive. But I also like the very last kick, which is more. Doof.
Yeah.
Of the mid intro.
No. The very last one.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, where they all work in a different way for
In this track,
different
yeah.
purposes. Yes.
We're gonna start with the first kick then, yeah.
Kick and bass drive.
And then you thought about this one.
Modern. Still with the drive on the offbeat.
Yeah. And then the last kick.
Almost feels like a wild motherfuckers kick or something.
Almost.
Yeah. Hey, Valerio, we've pretty much arrived in 2024. We saw you performing at DEF CON on the Magenta as Wild Motherfuckers, but you also played the Red instead of Satox, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What was it like playing the Red again? Because I had to look it up on Party Flock, but in the Netherlands you played the Red in 2007
2007, yeah.
at last. How did it feel like
The last time.
to be back on the Red?
It was a big surprise because I got the news as soon as I landed. Like,
Yeah.
hey, would you like to play on the Red tomorrow because Gerardo's not coming. We want you to play there. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I took the computer. I'm like, okay, what can I play?
Yeah.
What can I play? And but I pulled it off.
Yeah, of
So-
course, yeah.
It was cool. It was cool.
But you've mainly in your career played on the blue, on DEF CON a lot. What do you like more, the red or the blue stage?
Magenta.
Magenta?
No, magenta.
Nowadays magenta.
Magenta.
Okay.
Magenta is like home. I don't know.
Yeah?
Yeah, man. Magenta is like home.
But
Perfect.
the whole of DEF CON is like home because
Yeah, but that's
And-
that Magenta is my own room.
yeah, I know what you mean because
This is my bedroom.
Yeah.
let's say like a festival side, you have the black, the blue, and the red. Those are the biggest stages.
Yeah.
And then you have the smaller stages.
Yeah,
Well,
like
UV is also
UV,
really big.
magenta, yeah.
But then UV, magenta. So those are more the stages for the more picky people, the more
Dedicated.
dedicated people.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. And
They're really coming for that. They're not
yes,
standing at the.
they're not standing
I
at
mean,
the-
I mean, when I was playing at Red, I enjoyed that everyone was dancing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But I reckon most of the people, like new generation, they maybe didn't even know who I was. I mean, they were just there just to be at the main stage.
Yeah,
Whoever plays.
Yeah.
I'm at the main stage.
And you notice that when you play at Magenta, you
When I'm
notice-
at Magenta, there's a fucking flock coming.
Yeah.
We want to hear that. We want to hear that. We want to
Yes.
hear that.
Yes, exactly.
Play that,
Yeah.
please.
We go to Magenta especially for Tatanka or whoever is playing at that time. But
Yeah.
and have you ever been invited to play at the silent disco in the after party for DEF CON?
No thanks.
No,
No,
You
but
don't
that-
like silent disco?
no thanks. Fuck that shit.
You need bass?
It's all about the vibration.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you know, everything coming out of the speakers is not reacting just
Yes,
your
I-
ears. It's your whole body.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah. But still, I know exactly what you mean, of course. But
Yeah.
I think your music and your vibe with your music also fits with the silent
Yeah,
disco.
but let's
You can do it. Man.
let's do it in the blue.
You do it.
Let's do it in the blue.
yeah,
You do
of
it.
course.
Give,
yeah,
me
you can.
give me a loud sound system like fucking Cubase, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, of
you know?
course, of course.
And last year, I think you got to perform at the DEF CON Legends again after 2017, I think.
Uh-huh. Last year, this year, when was it?
Yeah, this year.
year, yeah.
Yeah. How was it like?
It was like an experience because you are behind the stage and you're there alone, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You just walk in and there's 65,000 people.
Yeah.
And
We
then
were,
you're like,
we were two
okay,
of them.
2 minutes doing the okay, bye, fuck off, and then again alone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit
Yeah.
strange.
It's
For us,
like-
in the crowd, it was amazing. Tatanka,
Yeah, but-
Africa, Tokyo.
For me, it was like, okay, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I used to like back in the days to start the sets or everything with something impactful
Yeah. Like a fat bass or reverse
or
bass.
something. Yeah, but nowadays I'm more for build-ups anyway. So it takes a while for me also to get there. I'm not immediately there. Like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I get there eventually.
You need
because
some time
because
to-
I get eventually genuinely excited about the building up. So
Yeah.
it builds
Yeah,
on
yeah,
me
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So I start like this and I end up
Yeah.
like that. Not just music, even emotion.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Myself. So I
Your
Like to
performance.
come into the rhythm
yeah.
of the set and
yeah. So being parachuted there like from 0 to 65,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Whoa.
Hello!
And then you were in full adrenaline, and then
You're
you
alone
had to
again. Yeah.
get off
And I'm
stage.
like, oh, wasn't it? Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Crazy.
No, they didn't fuck off me.
No, of course. Well, sort of, because I think there was this time where you go up and then
Yeah,
like
yeah,
30
yeah.
seconds, maybe 1
But
minute, and then
I mean, after that, I stayed there. It was
Yeah, of course.
amazing
with
show.
all the other people that
Yeah.
went off and
Yeah.
fucked
Yeah.
off again.
yeah.
Last regular episode, we got a question from a listener, and he asked, "Why was everyone in black?" Do you know?
on the stage.
We had it. We
Q-Dance asked for it.
Q-Dance asked like, please wear black. I'm like, it's fucking warm. Why would you do that? I don't know. But we were all wearing black
Okay.
because we had to. We've been asked to.
So it was Q-Dance wanted this vibe with
With the
everyone
black,
standing
yeah.
with black t-shirts on.
The typically DJ
Funeral
black t-shirt.
vibe, I don't know.
Funeral vibe, yeah. 25 years of hardstyle, it's that now.
Bye bye.
Hey, if we're looking into the future, we want new Tatanka tracks. Is
Wild
there something-
Motherfuckers tracks.
Or Wild Motherfuckers tracks. Is there something coming?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Because there's always the struggle between what you are, where you come from, what you represent, what you stand for, and what's working. If those two things don't meet easily, anything coming out of there is forced.
Yeah.
Therefore, the new audience is not pleased. The old audience is not pleased. Yourself not pleased.
Yeah. Then
Why
you don't
doing that?
need to do. But we just talked about Adaro. Make like music in the old style. You heard we are big fans of your music, and I think a lot of people are. Is that something like an idea to make music in the old Tatanka style to play at classic parties?
I've never considered that because I thought, they go at classic parties because they want to hear classics.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even get like requests about playing original unedited stuff,
Yeah.
So that made me wonder. That's really for the old school lovers, and they've always heard that thing in that way. They want to keep
Maybe
listening that way.
Maybe it shouldn't be
but I do edits anyway. Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. Of course, if you start listening to everyone, you cannot do your own thing anymore.
Yeah.
So, but let's say it shouldn't be like I'm gonna make a whole classic set with all new tracks in the old style, because people still like, of course, your older tracks.
Recognize.
Yeah, but if
tracks.
the thing is I always thought I thought about
But
that. Like coming up with something that sounds old, and then you're like listening to a new track which sounds old, and then you're like, hey, but it sounds old.
Yeah,
I've had
new.
that. Huh?
But it's new.
Yeah, it's
That sound
it's
is.
But I think-
unreleased.
I think-
Let's say it's unreleased.
I think
but
it would
it's
work if you do something like a cultural track or a new cultural track. I think it would work. Germany.
Sure. I am not gonna say anything.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I think we now have discussed all of your career. What did you find to be the highlight?
Did I have one?
A highlight?
I don't know. It feels to me like
What
It's-
a hard bass
it's been-
anthem, the whole success of Wild Motherfuckers.
I don't see it like that. I don't see it in
You still playing
in
it.
a linear way. I'm still playing. I'm still the result, the living result of whatever I have been through. Good experiences, bad experiences. Everything made me who I am, and I'm just a river which is at a certain spot, and I feel present here and now because I'm passing through
flowing through
this flow of water which I identify with, but I am the river, so
Okay.
I cannot say which part because the water flows. So where was the water?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sounds like really nice lyrics for a new track,
Yeah. River
or a track or whatever. I mean,
Use it.
no, no. It's yours.
Do you still have dreams?
When I sleep, yes.
But for Tatanka?
I have some challenges that I'm producing stuff which is not there yet because I believe for this kind of society and market that there is nowadays, it would be like throwing that in the toilet and flushing it. When you produce something specifically, there are some aspects coming from yourself.
Yeah.
you can't really express your whole spectrum of things if it comes from a slow development that doesn't work in certain kind of music.
Yeah.
What I've always loved was certain tracks more slow developing, and I think it's something that I want to explore.
Okay.
But now it wouldn't be the time, because every time now there's the dopamine rush, give me the next one, and you don't even pay attention to what's really there in the music, giving you a message not with words but with a journey.
Okay.
So if someday there will be more attention to listening again, then
New
maybe.
Tatanka.
But it's not even new Tatanka. It's a side of me that I wouldn't even associate with Tatanka.
Okay. Okay.
Because
But we would really like to hear from you if it's that time. Even if it's house or techno or
yeah,
what kind of.
I don't know. I couldn't even name it. You know.
That's perfect, right?
But yeah,
Just like hardstyle 25 years ago.
You couldn't name it.
no.
And then
That's true. That's true.
Q then signed it to brand
yeah.
it like
yeah.
hardstyle.
The best branding ever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's make that let's make an appointment. If you have new music, either as Tatanka or as another alias, just like a Tatak, Tatarola, Bison, let us know.
Okay.
Yeah?
But I know that you want me to produce something new with the old.
No, we
stuff.
would like you to produce something new
Yeah.
again.
Okay.
We're not forcing you.
No.
whatever,
I understand.
Yeah,
But
we
it has to
would
come-
love it for
Okay.
you that you will find maybe the love back again in making your sound in
Yeah.
Tatanka, because it is a unique sound in the whole hardstyle brand.
Yeah, but I thought that was if I see what works nowadays,
Yeah,
I'm thinking that way is over.
yeah. But if you now we're gonna
Because
start
that's also telling a story. You know,
yeah.
you need to take your fucking time to say something and
Yeah.
go from A to B.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be over rolling
Yeah, but-
and whatever rush there is,
Yeah.
and say absolutely nothing. If you analyze my track, there's always a story.
Yes,
There's
of course.
There's always
Yes.
a message.
Yeah.
But you need time to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I.
And take the time, of course. So
Yeah.
never
but
force
the
anything.
The spam of attention. That's the thing.
No.
Or with modern listeners or consumers.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I would like, because maybe you did not hear any hardstyle track with stories lately, because you don't listen to them or something. We're gonna let you
After
listen
the
to some
podcast,
track
after the podcast.
after the
Okay,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, just so you know that there is still hardstyle tracks with
With a story.
good and amazing stories to tell.
Cool.
Just so you know. But
Yeah.
Happy that.
Let's
Yeah,
wrap
but
this
you
up.
know, every time there was a top 100, top 1,000, top
Yeah.
whatever. And I
what
could-
was
I could-
the number one track? That was
and I could never find anything. So after a while, I gave up. But
If you-
meanwhile, it's been a few
Have you
a few
heard
years already since this happened. So
Yeah.
if you have some new tracks to be like,
just
hey,
listen to it, and then
listen
you're
to
like,
this. Yeah.
maybe I don't.
There's
Haven't you heard
there's
that?
so much released, and you
Yeah.
can't.
No,
it's,
so
it's a
much,
job.
yeah.
It's
It's a
crazy.
job. Just listen to music.
But haven't you just say? I'm just gonna say one track, the Headhunters track, "Live Forever." Haven't you heard that one?
Yeah, I heard. Of it.
Okay, yeah, that is like a story
Yes.
track. It's not danceable whatsoever.
It's not danceable.
But
No,
it is number one, maybe because
I
it
made
is
a
a-
short edit with that, to play in my sets.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
really?
Okay.
Okay.
So you
You know
okay.
this one, yeah.
Yeah,
I know it. I know
Yeah,
it.
okay,
Because
okay.
Well,
it's very, very.
let's have this
very
discussion,
Influenced about like melodic techno and more analog sounds, which I think it's kind of bold thing to do within a hardstyle environment. I think it's a well-produced track, but it's so
it's so out of the box, of course.
it's so out of the box. Also,
It's not a
long, very long parts before
yeah.
it actually gives energy.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
Made a short version, and I'm like, okay,
Okay. Well, let's keep this discussion alive after the podcast. We show you some new music. We have some present for you.
Oh.
We give it to all our guests in Hartstikke Gekhuis.
Okay.
You can over here. You can open it. I think
For the English Hardstyle Crazy House.
Hartstikke Crazy House in English. Yes.
But it's the one that's going to be in Dutch, Valerio. Sorry. Uh-oh.
Oh.
What is it?
Coffee cup.
Coffee cup. Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
You like coffee?
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course. Of course.
But you can also drink beer or wine or...
Yeah, you can drink everything.
I'm a
from it.
wine lover, but no, I'm not into beers. But yeah, I like coffee. I
Coffee.
like
It's
cups,
the
so-
official limited edition Hartstikke Gekhuis. In Dutch we say mok.
Mok.
Yeah,
Mok.
cup.
Okay.
It's a cup.
Cup. Yeah.
Coffee cup.
Thanks
Thank you.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
the cup.
Yeah. No,
Thanks for
Thank you for
being the guest in this episode of Hartstikke Gekhuis. We loved it.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much. And for the listeners at home, this was an extra episode from Hartstikke Gekhuis together with Italian legend Tatanka. The next regular episode is next week on Tuesday, and of course full of news, new tracks, and of course Back in Time. It will be in Dutch again.
Yeah.
But please let us know if you've loved this episode in English. Maybe we can do this more often with international DJs, guests. If you don't want to miss anything, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, because we're trying to put our full podcast on YouTube also.
Yeah. This episode is also you've seen
will
this
be on
episode
YouTube.
now
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Thanks, Valerio. And
thank you so much.
to everyone listening. Thanks for listening and viewing, and see you next week in Dutch again.
Yes.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Arrivederci.
Dit was Hardstyle Gekkenhuis. Hardstyle Gekkenhuis. Wil je niks missen? Volg ons op je favoriete podcastplatform of Instagram. Hardstyle Gekkenhuis.